right now I've more pressing concerns than my family legacy. Alistair Hammerlock, love of my life. If they kill him, I got nothing left.
It's about this engine that's been shaking itself apart. Then this lady mechanic comes by and lays one hand on it. And the trouble goes away. It sings. I don't want to get too hopeful, but I'm wondering if maybe she's the engine and I'm the lady? It's a real romantic poem. Made my chest hurt, kinda.
Hello, in this video I wanted to talk about something I've noticed recently, something that I haven't seen anyone else bring up, and it's basically a new trend that our society seems to be following. I picked this up from the last two video games that I played, which have been The Outer Worlds and before that Borderlands 3. Now I like both of these games, I think they're both good games, and despite what I'm going to talk about, I would recommend them. So don't take my criticism of this one individual part of each of the games as some sort of larger indictment of the games themselves. They're worth playing, trust me. The one thing that I noticed about both of these games, both of which are RPGs with stories, is that none of them feature any heterosexual characters. And in fact, all relationships featured in both of the games are exclusively homosexual. The homosexual relationships that do exist in these games are not subtle at all. They hit you over the head with them. They really want you to know that these characters are gay. Other than there being reference to some of the characters having parents, because presumably in these games worlds, it still requires a man and a woman to be able to reproduce, there really is no reference to heterosexual relationships. And it wouldn't even surprise me if the games got even crazier in this regard in the future. I could see, for example, one of the characters explaining that they were birthed by a trans man by themselves using some sort of advanced technology to reproduce. Because yeah, that better celebrates the immense joys of liberal individualism.
And to stand for my own principles, I have to put aside my personal dislike of these people, because as a liberal, I think that their rights as individuals are sacrosanct. I think their personal liberties should be inviolable.
Now, according to James Younger's mother, she's a pediatrician, the 7-year-old child born a male identifies now as a girl. Her mother calls James Luna. She lets Luna use the girl's bathroom and has registered the child in school as a girl.
I think that their rights as individuals are sacrosanct.
Now these games were released by separate publishers, but they were released within a month of each other, and it's hard for me to believe that this is simply a coincidence. In particular, I would say that the lack of any sort of relationship options in the Outer Worlds particularly is very telling that this was something that the developer wanted to deliberately avoid. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Outer Worlds treats its story and characters pretty seriously. It reminded me of Mass Effect in this regard. You talk to all of your companions, have some rather in-depth background discussion with them. They give you personal quests. There are a lot of games that are like this, but what's unique about the Outer Worlds is that there is no companion romance. Your character cannot have any sort of relationship with any of these characters, which is a lot different from the Dragon Age games, the Mass Effect games, the Fallout games. It really does seem like a core component of the game was just left out of it. And the only way for that to have been the case is there had to have been some deliberate choice on part of the developer that they did not want to feature this as part of the game. The homosexual relationship that gets featured the most prominently in the Outer Worlds is that of your companion Parvati. But even this relationship, the game goes out of the way to inform the player that this is not going to be a relationship that involves any sort of sexual component to it.
I don't know where it's leading yet, or if I'm misinterpreting. I'm not much interested in physical stuff. Never have been. Leastway's not like other folks seem to be. It's not that I can't, I just don't care for it.
Why would the game need to include this? How is this relevant or important to the story? To know that not only is Parvati in this homosexual relationship, but they're clearly not going to act on it physically. It's going to be purely an emotional relationship. The only reason that I can think of as to why the game would want to do this is they don't want to offend people. Because, you know, two characters, even if they're homosexual characters, if they're having sex, well, you know, that just might offend someone. And I think that's the whole reason why there's not heterosexual relationships in either of these games. They just don't want to offend anyone. Heterosexual relationships are now offensive. I predict in the future in more games and movies like this, you're not going to see straight people anymore. It's only going to be gay characters, because those are less likely to offend people. I mean, forget the fact that only around 5% of the population is gay. In the future, in our video games and movies, majority of the characters are going to be gay, if in fact not all of them. And I don't think the video game developers are doing this to push any sort of propaganda. I don't think that either The Outer Worlds or Borderlands 3 are particularly social justice warrior propaganda. If these developers had really wanted these games to push a progressive message, then they could have written their storylines in different ways to make it a lot more ham-fisted. I don't believe that this is an attempt to put social justice warrior propaganda in games at all. I think that it's clearly a matter of the developer wanting to take the safest course possible to avoid offending anyone. I think what the developer is thinking is that if they have straight characters in the game, people are going to play it, they're going to see these straight characters and be like, nope, you know what, fuck this game. This game's offending me. I think from the game developer's perspective, if they're going to put in straight characters in these games, then all they're going to do is just offend people. The safer course of action would just be make all the characters gay. And that's what both of these games have done. To the point where a character has a sexuality in either of these games, it's exclusively going to be a homosexual sexuality. Now, if you're watching this and you're thinking, well, why is this prosecutor guy, why is he so offended or butthurt over the fact that these characters in these games are gay? I don't really care that they're gay. I don't care that Parvati's a lesbian or that Sir Hammerlock is gay. Like, it doesn't matter to me. It's not that I'd prefer them to be straight or anything like that. It's just that I think this is a social trend that's going to continue into other media that's going to get annoying and obnoxious over time. If I'm wrong about this, and this is a giant coincidence that these two games just happen to come out within a month of each other with exclusively gay characters, and in future video games there's just as many straight characters as gay characters or more, then yeah, I guess I would be wrong then, and this isn't really a social trend. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we're going to see more and more video games, more and more movies and things like The Outer Worlds, like Borderlands 3, and that we're not going to really have straight characters anymore. Or they're going to be a small minority compared to the homosexual characters. I also joked before about video games including characters who were not birthed by two parents, but I think it's realistic to expect that theme to start coming up in games. When it comes to how relationships are handled in games, I prefer something along the lines of Dragon Age Inquisition, where you have some characters who are heterosexual and you have a more minority of characters who are homosexual, or something like Fallout 4, where the player can romance any character regardless of whether the player character is a man or woman. Although that's not realistic to how the real world works. Obviously, most people are not bisexual, but it sort of gives the player character the ability to do whatever they want. And in a game where there's mutant creatures and all sorts of science fiction elements, I don't think there's anything wrong with the way that, for example, Fallout 4 handles its romance. I think both of those games handled the issue a lot better than The Outer Worlds does, which is basically to feature only sexless homosexual relationships. The other problem I have with this is these games are going to be played by a lot of kids. I understand these games are rated M for mature, but I can tell you the M rating never stopped me as a kid from playing any mature rated games. And I'm almost certain that a lot of kids are going to be playing Borderlands 3 as well as Outer Worlds. I think this is particularly true of Borderlands 3, which despite its M rating, everything else about the game, it's the way that it's designed, the story, sort of the jokes in the game, clearly seem to be aiming at a younger audience. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with children being exposed to gay characters. I don't really have a problem with that. But the issue is that this is being treated as the norm, that people are normally homosexual. But that's clearly not the case for 95% of the population. Most people are straight. Only a small minority of people are homosexual. I think putting the expectation on children that they are supposed to be gay or supposed to be bisexual is only going to cause more social problems. And we already have way too many social problems being caused by children being confused about their sexuality. And if I am right, if this is a societal trend, if this continues, then that's only going to get worse. But that's about all I have to say on this subject matter. I'm curious what other people think. Have there been other games that have come out recently that have also followed this pattern? Once again, I like both of these games. I recommend you play them if you haven't played either one of them. But I'm just concerned that this trend is going to continue and that it's going to prop up in more and more of our entertainment. Anyways, if you like this video and you're not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe. Thank you.